In the very beginning of days, when everything was just starting out, my dear friend, the leopard, lived in a place called the High Veldt. Now, you have to remember, this wasn't the Low Veldt, or the Bush Veldt, or the Sour Veldt. No, it was the exclusively bare, hot, shiny High Veldt. Imagine a place with nothing but sand and sandy-colored rock, and just little tufts of sandy yellowish grass scattered all about. Living there with the leopard were the giraffe, the zebra, the eland, the kudu, and the hartebeest. And they were all exclusively a sandy yellow brownish color from head to toe. But the leopard, oh, he was the most exclusively sandiest, yellowish brownest of them all. He was a kind of grayish yellowish cat-shaped creature, and he blended in with the High Veldt so perfectly you couldn't tell him apart from the ground, not even by a single hair. Now, this was very, very bad for the giraffe and the zebra and all the other animals, because the leopard would just lie down next to a yellowish, grayish, brownish stone, or a clump of grass that was just his color. And when the giraffe, or the zebra, or the eland, or the kudu, or the bushbuck, or the bontbuck happened to wander by, he would leap out and surprise them right out of their jumpy, skittish lives. He really would. And there was someone else living on the High Veldt, too. It was an Ethiopian man with his bows and arrows. Back then, he was also an exclusively grayish, brownish, yellowish man. He and the leopard lived on the High Veldt together, and they used to hunt together. The Ethiopian would use his bows and arrows, and the leopard, well, he exclusively used his teeth and his claws. They were such a good team that soon, the giraffe and the eland and the kudu and the quagga and all the rest of them were in a terrible state. They were so scared, they didn't know which way to jump or where to run. They really didn't. They were constantly looking over their shoulders, wondering where the next attack would come from. The sandy-colored landscape that was once their home had become a place of constant danger, all thanks to the perfectly camouflaged leopard and his hunting partner, the Ethiopian. This went on for a long time. The animals of the High Veldt were living in fear, and they knew something had to change. They couldn't go on being surprised at every turn. They gathered together, their hearts pounding, trying to figure out a plan. The giraffe, with his long neck, could see for miles, but even he couldn't spot the leopard until it was too late. The zebra, with his quick legs, could run fast, but the leopard was faster. One day, after a particularly close call, the animals decided they had had enough. They had to leave the High Veldt. It was the only way to escape the leopard and the Ethiopian. So they packed up their fears and their families and started a great journey. They traveled for days and nights, leaving the bare sandy plains behind them. They were looking for a new home, a safer home. After a very long trek, they came to a great big forest. It was completely different from the High Veldt. It was filled with tall trees that made stripy, patchy, dotty shadows on the ground. The sunlight filtered through the leaves, creating a pattern of light and dark everywhere. The air was cool and damp, not hot and dry. This forest was alive with new sounds and smells. For the first time in a long time, the animals felt a glimmer of hope. They decided to stay. Living in the forest changed them. The giraffe started eating the leaves from the tall trees, and the shadows of the branches made him look blotchy. So he developed big brown blotches on his coat to blend in. The zebra hid among the thick striped tree trunks and bamboo, and the shadows made him look stripy. So he grew black and white stripes all over his body. And the eland and the kudu found their own spots and nooks in the forest, and their coats became darker and patchier to match the new, shadowy landscape. They were all changing, adapting to their new home. Back on the High Veldt, the leopard and the Ethiopian were getting hungry. They waited, and they waited, but no giraffe or zebra or eland came by. They wondered, where have all the animals gone? They searched high and low across the bare, sandy-colored ground, but there was nothing. The veldt was empty. Their food had just vanished, so they decided to follow the animals' tracks. They walked and walked, leaving the familiar High Veldt behind. Eventually, the tracks led them to the edge of the great, big, beautiful forest. It was dark and full of shadows inside. The leopard said, "What is this place? It's all dark and full of bits and pieces." The Ethiopian, who was a very wise man, said, "This must be where they've gone. We have to go in and find them." But as soon as they stepped into the forest, they realized they had a problem. The leopard, with his sandy yellowish-brownish coat, stood out like a sore thumb against the dark, shadowy forest floor. And the Ethiopian, with his grayish-brownish-yellowish skin, was just as easy to see. They couldn't hide anywhere. The tables had turned. Now, they were the ones who couldn't blend in. They'd crept through the forest, trying to be quiet, but it was no use. The animals, with their new coats, could see them coming from a mile away. The blotchy giraffe would melt into the leafy canopy. The stripy zebra would disappear among the trees. The leopard and the Ethiopian couldn't catch anything. They were getting hungrier and hungrier. The leopard was very frustrated. He complained to the Ethiopian, "This is no good. They can see us coming. I can't hunt like this. What are we going to do?" The Ethiopian thought for a moment. He looked at the giraffe's blotches and the zebra's stripes. He looked at the patchy, dotty shadows all around them. And then he had an idea. He said to the leopard, "My friend, you need to change your look. You can't go about in the forest looking like you belong on the High Veldt. You need to look more like this place." The leopard looked around. He saw the spots of sunlight on the forest floor. He saw the dark patterns on the other animals. The Ethiopian said, "I'm going to change my skin, and that will give you a hint." So the Ethiopian decided he would become black. It was a much better color for hiding in the dark shadows of the forest. He found some special berries and clays and changed his skin to a deep dark color. Now he could move through the forest without being seen. Then he turned to the leopard. "Now what about you?" he asked. "You were so proud of your sandy yellowish coat. But it's no use here." The leopard looked at his own plain coat and felt a bit sad. But he was also very, very hungry. "What do I do?" he asked. "You can have spots," said the Ethiopian. Lots and lots of spots. The Ethiopian dipped his fingertips in the same dark color he had used for his own skin. He said to the leopard, "Hold still." And he pressed his 5 fingertips all over the leopard's coat. He put spots on his back, his sides, his legs, and his head. Wherever his 5 fingers touched, they left 5 little black marks close together. The leopard looked at his new coat. It was covered in beautiful, dark spots. He went to a puddle of water to see his reflection. He moved into the shadows, and he disappeared. He moved into a patch of sunlight, and the spots looked just like the dappled light filtering through the leaves. It was perfect. He was camouflaged again. From that day on, the leopard had his spots. And he became a master hunter in the forest, just as he had been on the High Veldt. He could lie by a leafy branch and look like the shadows. He could crouch on the ground and look like a patch of sunlight. And the giraffe and the zebra had to be just as careful as they were before. And that, my dear friend, is the story of how the leopard got his spots. He had to change to fit his new home, and those spots have served him well ever since. It just goes to show you that sometimes a little change is all you need to thrive in a new place. So next time you see a leopard, remember the story of the High Veldt and the great, big forest. Thanks for listening to our story today. I hope you enjoyed this little trip back in time. If you love classic tales like this one, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more adventures. We've got plenty more stories to share with you. See you next time.